things off. Yeah, I think yesterday you had your first training session. Just give us a feel, the difference between Cape Town and Joburg in terms of altitude and everything like that.
Staying at a pretty nice place. It's good to see some of the scenery here. A bit wet today, obviously, but obviously from last week we were coming in, acclimatising, getting over the jet lag. But again today, physical test match. So from yesterday, getting the bodies right and trying to get our recovery.
And in terms of the jet lag, is that something you feel is still such a big factor going from first week to the second week?
Yeah, definitely. I reckon so. Any test match you play is physical and big and taxing on the body, and then to play the week later is always going to be a test on the body as well. So every team's doing the same. Every team's trying to get their recovery in mentally as well, and then reset and go again because obviously the goalposts are changing. There's new goals for this week ahead.
Just in terms of question to you, last week there was a bit of rain in the beginning to the early stages of the match and maybe just weather conditions. This weekend most likely will be a bit of rain. We saw you guys and just how tough you were against the British and Irish line, just grinding that, in that victory, obviously just not being a bit successful, but sort of just how do you approach this week knowing that those are the kind of conditions that you will potentially face this weekend?
Yeah, you mentioned we've had to deal with that once already this year, so we certainly feel confident in how we prepare for that. But look, that being said, the preparation is different every week for every opposition. So what we do know this week is that the Boks are gonna respond. So we need to prepare ourselves physically for that. We know they're the benchmark globally for that type of game. So we'll get that right, and then we're very blessed. We've got a fantastic coaching staff, strategy and tactics wise, and guys like James O'Connor, Nick White, who can also add a bit of IP there. So we'll leave the strategy and that sort of stuff to those guys, and the rest of us will get ready for a big test match.
What does last weekend's victory mean to you guys? Obviously you're going to any match wanting to win. Now, that's why you play the sport, but excuse me, the manner in which you are able to defeat the Springboks, the world champions, back-to-back world champions, what does that type of victory mean to Australian rugby, knowing that it's just the journey that you guys are on currently moving into the Rugby World Cup?
Yeah, you said it and I said it before. I think the Boks have been the benchmark globally for a little while now. So to beat them anywhere, home, away, is an amazing achievement. To beat them in South Africa is something we haven't done for a very long time, and certainly a goal that we set ourselves. So to be able to tick that box and be able to enjoy that as a team, and as you mentioned, where we're at on our journey, it's a very, very special feeling, and that's why we all play the game, as you mentioned as well. But again, you win, you have one good win, and you don't follow it up, then you're pretty quickly chasing your tail. So for us, it's about enjoying it and understanding just how big that win was for us, but also understanding how big this week is, because you mentioned it and I said it again, that the journey is a long one and it doesn't stop. So for us, it's important to keep going.
Tate spoke yesterday about the environment Joe has been creating over these past 24 months, and just in terms of you guys, is there a difference in terms of where you were last year and where you guys feel you are now?
Well, I think for any team, you do definitely have the ups and downs. It's not just a upwards trajectory of improvement. I think we showed some games last year, especially on that spring tour. Put a couple of good games together there and really tested ourselves against some of the top teams in the world. It's been great under Joe. I think all the boys and the staff have been enjoying the environment first and foremost. So that's a good tick, and then it's from this weekend it translated into a performance like that. So yeah, we've all been enjoying it, and it's been great to have him around for him to stick on as well.
And Rossi, he tends to announce his teams early in the week. I think last week it was on Monday. This week it's this afternoon. Does that, knowing early on, against you guys are going up against, affect the way you go about the training? Because I know you only announced, I think, on Thursday, if I'm correct. does knowing early, who you are facing, affect the way you guys go about things?
I don't really think so, to be honest. Maybe at a coaching level, but for us players, we know we've got to get through our group of work on most teams, our main training day is that Tuesday, so it's a pretty heavy day. So just after this, we'll go off, we'll get a bunch of our work done and things that we kind of do each week that we need to prepare, because we know if we don't test ourselves during the week, we won't really set ourselves up a good performance on the weekend. Tactically, I'm not too sure if that has too much of an effect, but you do your preparation in general of IDing who's going to play throughout the weeks, and you look at different things here and there. So it doesn't have a massive effect for me personally, but yeah.
I think just one more from me. You would have come into last weekend's match preparing really well. This week you face a wounded Springbok, and sometimes people will say that that's maybe one of the toughest ways to face a Springbok team. Do you change how you prepare, knowing that they are going to be a lot more physical, a lot more intensive, and potentially, and this is what Russell maybe alluded to yesterday, reverting back to typical Springbok rugby this weekend in order to potentially get back into winning ways?
No, I don't think you change the way you prepare. I think every time you play the Springboks, you prepare for exactly what you just described. So I don't think that will change our preparation. Again, as I mentioned, mentally, we have to make sure that we're ready for that, because that is, at this point, it's the biggest challenge in world rugby, is coming up against the Springboks. And no, I don't think it changes the way we prepare.
Got some time for some questions online. If there's some online, Johnny, I can see your hand up there, mate. If you just want to jump in.
Hey, Nick, how's it going? Just a question for you. It was really impressive just watching the work in the collisions. I was just wondering what Joe Smith has brought to that work, just in terms of winning collisions, which was really impressive on Saturday.
I think Kel's touched on a bit before about the mindset going into games, and especially against the Springbok, but I'd also say probably in that opening 20 odd minutes we didn't win too many collisions either. So we know how the Springbok play, and they come out hard and fast, and obviously they did come out hard and fast, and we kind of struggled a bit there. So yeah, Joe's brought a bit there. Laurie Fisher as well. That's his bread and butter, and going through a lot of those defence systems. So it's another area that we're definitely got to look at for this week coming up, because we know that they started pretty bloody well, and we've got to capitalise on that.
Yeah, and just one more for me, Andrew. I was just wondering, obviously you've been around this team for a while. Can you give us a bit of an insight what makes this group so special to be a part of?
Oh, there's a lot of things. I think the first one that comes to mind is the work the coaching staff are doing. We've got a big staff, but an extremely experienced staff. And that even with a little bit of turnover, with Jeff Parling heading off to Leicester, you lose an experienced guy like that and you gain another one in SAS. So that's been fantastic. And I mentioned the strategy and the tactics just prior. Add into that guys like Whitey and Rabs, who can add a lot of value there. But then underneath that, within the team, there's this really strong core group of guys who've been around for a little while, and I think naturally when you see some consistency in the team, that sort of translates into whatever you want to call it, cohesion, combinations, all that sort of stuff. So I'm certainly feeling that at the moment, and it's a really, Freddie touched on it, it's a really enjoyable environment to be in at the moment.
Thanks.
Hey, Kels. A bit of talk that guys like Andre Pollard might come back, and clearly in the first 20 minutes of the game they had a lot of success with box kicks and putting pressure in the back three. Are you guys expecting that they'll resort to a fair bit more like that and just a slightly different kind of game plan? Yeah,
well, I think what we've seen from the Springboks over the last 4 to 8 years is a pretty strong game plan that hasn't deviated too much, and it's really worked well for them. And so that is the box kick to compete, and then the physicality around the kick chase and that sort of stuff. So As I mentioned before, we're always expecting that from the Springboks, but I mean more so in rugby at the moment, that is a pretty big staple. So that doesn't change for us. We're always working on that sort of stuff, and I mean I think with the weather here, you're obviously not here, Christy, but it's pretty wet. So definitely expecting a little bit more of that.
And just like the composure that, like, oldest halves pairing in a long time, but what kind of composure did you pick up from having Whitey and JOC at 9 and 10? Like, you would have played outside a lot of kind of younger 10s in recent years. What did you find the difference by having those two there in those key positions?
It's an interesting question. I don't think there was, to the naked eye, so to speak, I don't think there was that many major differences. I think what it was when the team's flowing and we're in play, it's those guys having the experience to fall back on. So Rabs knows, because he's been in that situation multiple times before, and the same for Whitey, and those guys are actually able to bounce off each other and then make a call, either a starter play or a broader sort of tactical call on how we want to go about it. And that is the benefit of having those guys in the team. And I think even back to the last Lions test with Whitey at halfback, we sort of even saw a little bit of that benefit. So again, the challenge for those guys is to keep providing that, because it's a really, really tricky skill to do, especially when you're in the cauldron against the world champs.
And Nick, how much confidence did you get kind of owning the line-out space and picking off a few of those? Like, clearly the box line-out and set piece has been such a strength for a long time. There must be a fair bit of confidence that you've been able to have such an outstanding kind of game in that area.
I think first and foremost, it was definitely a double-edged sword. We did lose a few, and they put a whole lot of pressure on us. So it is quite tough. Always going up against a Springbok, it's going to be a set-piece battle. But I think the boys did a lot of homework during the week of what we can expect from them. And there's a credit to a few boys there, because it's not an individual thing. Maybe I'm the person in the air, but I've got to be lifted too. They've got to be in the right spot, and there's guys getting their ID and their vision right. So it's a whole collective thing from that set piece point of view. So it was good potentially in that defensive space, but we've got to look at our attack heading forward from there, because obviously. We did lose a couple against South Row and a couple in our big moments there, which could have potentially hurt us in some test matches.
Anything further online?
Guys, sorry, Jamie, you go, mate. Thanks, mate. I'm just wondering how you guys have identified what the key to consistent performances is. Like, over the last few years, you've had a couple of really good games and then fallen off, and it seems like you're starting to build more of a consistency across your games, probably aside from the first 3 quarters against the Lions. But have you identified anything in particular that's allowed you to play at that frequent level?
I think the one thing that springs to mind is time in the saddle. I think I mentioned Rabs and Whitey there before, having the experience to fall back on when the pressure comes on, and probably a large portion of the group hasn't had that up until sort of the last 12 to 18 months. So I think what we're seeing is the benefit of the last 3 or 4 years worth of whatever you want to call it, planning, where guys have now had 30 or 40 caps as opposed to 10 or 20, and they've got the lived experience to fall back on, especially when they're under pressure. And I'd also add, right, we've won sort of 2 games back to back. I think that is a form of consistency, but what we're actually looking for is a lot longer streak of consistent performances, not necessarily wins. So we're definitely on the right track, but we're nowhere near where we want to be on the consistency front just yet.
Thanks.
I'll just throw in one question here. One for Frosty, but both of you can answer it kind of off the back of the consistency question. There was a great quote that Tom Hooper mentioned off the back of that consistency performance, where Laurie said that the team's really in the business of getting better, which has kind of felt like something that has come out quite a bit. Frosty, for you first, but Kels, you can answer this one too. When you actually have a performance like that, when you kind of produce a comeback like that and get a great result, how does that business of getting better kind of be approached? When you kind of come into a week like this, when you arrive in Cape Town, everyone's going, okay, let's do it again.
Well, I think I referred to what I said earlier. Like, we obviously had a comeback, but the first 20 odd minutes, definitely we were under the pump there, and I'm pretty sure the Springboks are going to double down on what they did at the start, which is tactical kicking, physicality, big ball carries, good defence, and they really pinned us in our own 22, let alone our half, and it was quite hard to get out of there. So. That's a massive area that we've got to look at and to get better on, first and foremost. So that's definitely probably the main one that comes to my mind of getting better at that and being consistent across the full 80, and we're understanding and what the challenge is going to come. It's been spoken about the response and emotionally and the physicality that's going to be brought. So that's first and foremost. That's the point that comes to my mind.
Anything further online, guys? Happy? Anything in the rip? Did you have anything?
Yeah, I got one. Sorry, mate.
Oh, sorry. Go, Marco.
Harry Wilson's knee. Yeah, I just want to say, how is the captain's knee, Harry's knee? Is it all okay?
As far as we're aware, everyone's available for selection at the moment. We'll certainly look good on when we got into Cape Town, but I'm not a doctor, so I can't actually answer that question. I can get the doctor in if you like.
No, all good. Thanks.
Yeah, sure.
Has he been training? Harry been training?
We haven't actually trained yet, so we've done our normal install. Our normal Monday doesn't involve any running around, so I assume we'll still have a run around today. As I said, as far as we're aware, everyone's available for selection.
Thanks, man. Guys, you obviously know South Africa they will be without their double World Cup winning captain this weekend because of the injury. And just your thoughts on what they will be missing and what he brings, and just your thoughts on that generally.
Well, I think it is a loss for them having their leader, but I've just seen over the years that the amount of depth they have in each position is it's second to none in the world. I think a lot of teams envy what they have, so there's got to be a quality player step in his position. Definitely there. So maybe they lose some of that leadership, but they've got plenty of other leaders and plenty of other experience on the field to fill their shoes.
And you guys also have a few injuries around.
As again, everyone's available for selection at this stage, so we'll go through that. But unfortunately, from the weekend, we did see Peachy with his jaw, and James Slipper's already headed home with a HIA, so we'll miss some experience there and some players. But other than that, for this week, the squad that we have here, everyone's fighting for selection.